Welcome to the newest episode of Saved by the Books, where two ladies with opposite reading tastes discuss all things reading.
Hey guys, what's up? And welcome to another episode of Saved by the Books. We're back, and this time we are discussing August's buddy read. So for August, we both read Ace of Shades, and we asked you guys to read it too. Yep. This video, or this podcast, is gonna have spoilers, just as a side note. So
make sure you read the book and then come back.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing.
But yeah, basically Ace of Shades is a fantasy world with a city that is reminiscent of our Las Vegas, except it's like way worse, I think.
Right, and it has some historical aspect. I feel like it goes back in time somewhat. I feel like it's not,
I actually talked about that. So,
right,
yeah, so basically this girl named Anne goes to New Rains, which is the city, to look for her mother who has gone missing, and she gets caught up in all of the crime and whatnot.
The underworld.
Yeah, it was very good. We both really liked it. So if you haven't read it, go read it and then come back, like we said.
I was about to say, like, Amanda Foody, who's the author, like, she was really nice. Like, she interacted with us.
She messaged me back and forth for a couple of days.
Yes, I know.
So
it's exciting.
Yeah. And we both did vlogs about Ace of Shades, like, as we were reading it, so you can kind of get, like, multiple viewpoints. You can get, like, our individual thoughts and then our thoughts together. So, yeah, go find our YouTube channel. Where are they linked?
We'll link them.
Yeah, we'll, like, tag ourselves on Instagram, and then, yeah, you guys get what we're saying. Go to Instagram. There'll be a way to find our YouTube channels, because those videos are already up, and, yeah, they might be pretty interesting to watch. I have no idea what Becky's is about yet, so...
Yeah, I don't really know either, but I haven't edited it, so, and it's the first vlog, so it'll be interesting. We'll see if I do it again.
It's my first one book vlog, so it was like a struggle to figure out like how much to talk about.
I know, that's what I was, especially because we were coming here, I was like, what do I talk about, what do I not? Like, I have some instant reactions, but about certain things in here. And then I was like, well, this is the other stuff I do when I don't read.
Yeah, I figured I actually had a few like things I had highlighted and was like, they're kind of like philosophical type things. And
I had one moment like that.
I was like, I'll talk about that with Becky, because that's usually what our conversations end up involving. And then I'll just like basically gush about the book on my vlog, so.
Right, and then we also both got the sequel to it, and she just announced the title to the final book that's coming out next year.
I know I saw it, but now I can't remember.
Queen of something.
Yeah, I think
I don't know. But
there's another book that I just recently read called Dark Shores, and that one was just announced as well. So I'm like, I don't know.
But I know like the title truly fit in who's the main character. So I guess we should just get into it.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. Queen of Vaults. And that's important.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes. I remember seeing the title and was like, it makes sense. But yeah, so like I said, we both really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. Sometimes with books, like the further away that it's been since I've read it, I am like, why did I give that? Whatever. I don't think it'll be that issue with this book. Like, if anything, I'm like, oh my god, I want to reread it again.
Yeah, like I gave it 5 stars almost immediately. I was about halfway through and I knew it was going to stand up just from some of the things with the plot and the world building and the 2 main characters. And
sometimes I manage to pick good books.
Well, and yeah, I would have, like, and I know I mentioned this in my blog that I never would have gotten this book, but Paige had 2 copies, so I got one. And then we're like, okay, what book? And that's how we, I guess, a little backstory, how we pick a lot of our books of the month are what's actually on our physical TBR that we think others would potentially enjoy. And so this was one.
And we were kind of like, for this one, I was like, can we get some fantasy in here? So.
Yeah, because the last fantasy, I guess the only close to fantasy one was the 1000th floor.
Yeah. I mean, I would...
Did we do another?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I usually try to, like, do contemporary stuff.
Or we'll jump around between different things. But yeah. Anyways.
But yes, so characters. Who was your favorite?
I didn't like N at first, but then I did end up really liking her. So, because I feel like she came into herself. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Like, she had a lot of growth. I didn't like it at the beginning because it seemed like it was an overnight switch. That, you know, she was kind of... It is.
You caught that. Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, it was... And that's the thing. Like, once you got into the book and you... Because I think Amanda did a really good job that it was a slow... She would reveal things slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
In the moments that it needed to be revealed. And that's why, like, within...
I thought it was amazing. Like, I thought it was really well done. Because, like we were saying, like, it's revealed later on as to, like, why. And so, basically, if you guys didn't catch it, the reason why was because once N's mother died, like, the protection that she had was gone. And so... N was able to be her true self, right? And
tap into those true, like those natural abilities she had that were suppressed before that moment.
Which was so interesting because like the whole, basically like everybody has these powers or whatever, and N's mother, how do you say her name? Is it Lourdes or Lourdes? Or...
See, that's what I was wondering. If I would say Lourdes, I don't know, but that was like her adopted mom.
Yeah, and so she has like the power of protection.
Right.
And so I thought it was interesting, like, the way that power worked. Because it was different from how I expected.
Yeah.
Also, there's something, I have since started reading the second one. And I'm like 40% of the way through, so I'm going to try not to talk about anything from the second one, but there's more stuff in the second one.
Yeah, that's why I didn't start the second one. So, but in the book, each person in the society has 2 last names. And that's how they get their powers. They have like kind of a dominant power and then a recessive power. And so N thinks she is just, you know, this one thing this entire time. And she realizes she's not that great at it. And so it's not until she gets to New Reigns and has to kind of...
I always want to call it Las Vegas.
I do too. That's what I would think. I was like, what is it called?
But also I want to call it New Orleans because of the new.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my God.
I got to think about it real quick. And so she gets there, and because of her circumstances, she has to work. Because at the beginning, if you know, she runs into issues. And she's lost like most of everything.
I thought that was crazy. Basically, this girl just like drops all of her stuff in the street and takes off running. I'm like, I am not taking off running and dropping all of my worldly possessions.
Right, and it's because of like she already gets like in trouble the very first hour she's there, like by the police, and I forget though. Is it White Boots?
Yeah, that's what they call them.
And it's because she happens to mention her mom's name. And so then you know, like, okay, there is some shady stuff that's about to go down. But because of that, she ends up becoming an acrobat. And she just flourishes and becomes this amazing thing. But then that makes her stand out. And so people are starting to think that she's something else. Which we find out she really is.
Yeah.
So,
which I suspected from fairly early on. I was like, she doesn't know her real parents.
And then so anyways, is that your favorite? Because I was like, it connects to world building, the next part.
I really love Levi and Raymond. Like, I wanted more of like their relationship.
I was so sad.
I was really sad. I went on about it in my vlog, so I won't go on about it here. But yeah, I was really sad. But yeah, now I'm sad again. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, with Levi.
Plus, I will say this, like, some other characters in the second one are now my favorite. So I'm trying to, like, remember what I was thinking.
Yeah. I did like how Levi kind of changed as it went through. And, like, instead of just, he was doing it kind of out of greed because he you know, it was a Ponzi scheme and he got in trouble and he realized, well, N may be my payout, so I can actually get rid of, you know, what was hanging over his head. But
one thing I loved, I guess maybe this might be what you're talking about with the world building. One thing I loved about the characters is that their powers influenced how they looked. And so, like, Levi's hair is, it starts growing in on, like, one color and turns into another color because that's, like, orb maker hair. And then his best friend, Jack, he is, like, his power is, like, strength and taking away pain. And he's, like, really big and bulky. And so I liked those little details.
Right, and then at the end with N and her eye color, and that's when you know she's truly that person now.
Yeah.
Like, it's all revealed in that one moment.
Yeah, so I really like that. I also feel like the characters were all different, and it was in a way that was, like, very natural. Because, yeah, like, I was thinking about you when you were, like, thinking about, just, like, when it was describing, like, skin colors and stuff. I was like, she's probably, like, annotating with, like, diverse.
Yeah, and I actually didn't annotate, like, anything. So, and I was like, I should have.
I read it on my Kindle, and I highlighted, like, 50 things. So,
well, and I just enjoyed the book, I think, too much. And so there wasn't a moment for me to stop and think about it. Because I read most of the book in one day. I started, and you'll see it, like, I started it, and then it was seriously one day I got almost all of it done.
I stayed up until 5:30 in the morning reading it. So,
I mean, it was that good.
Yeah. One thing I did not like was Lola's blood gazing. I mentioned this in my vlog too, but it was disgusting. Like, I cringed so hard.
I'm sorry, like, having blood, eyes, like, I just couldn't. And I mean, and I love the reaction kind of the characters in the book. Like, they were disgusted with it too, type of thing. But I am curious to see how she comes to be in the second book.
Yeah.
Because I know, based off of Amanda's Instagram for the third book, that I believe it's I think it's going to have at least 4 character point of views, and one of them is going to be Lola.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, in the second one, there's more character point of views.
Yeah.
And it was kind of threw me off at first, but now I'm fine with it. Another thing I really liked with all the characters is they were all really sarcastic and just sassy. And so because of that, there were so many, like, just funny one-liners, and so they would be, like, talking about something serious, and then, like, one of them would be sarcastic, and, like, I felt like the tension was broken.
Right, because they're going through really serious stuff. And so, but it's just how, you know, is how they were able to get through each day in that situation. So
the only thing I did not like was that, and I don't like this for any book, is when the author, like, creates their own curse words or cuss words.
Yeah.
Because I think because I've been reading so much adult this year, it's just like, if there's a cuss word, like, it's just there. And so another thing, related to this, and I did not talk about this in my video, I find it interesting that in a YA book, there are different cuss words, which I understand why that's a purpose for, like, a young adult book. Yet there can be a masturbation scene.
Right.
Like,
well, and then pedophilia and,
like, we go
all this other stuff.
Like, I'm just like, I was reading that scene, like, I don't care that they're there. Like, either one, I don't care that they're there.
No.
But I was just like, that is hilarious that, like,
that happens, but then you can't have a regular old cuss word.
For all, I mean, that might be one of the things, like, Amanda liked to do. Like, she wanted to do that because it helped. It does kind of create more, like, world building when you do that. So, like, I mean, you know, whatever. It's just, like, a personal preference. But yeah, it's just interesting to me, like, what can be allowed in young adult and, like, what isn't typically done.
Well, then, and I was wondering, I kept thinking, I was like, this is more of a new adult
book.
Yeah,
I 100%
I wouldn't
agree.
Give it to middle schoolers
think we will probably talk about age groups because that's, like, one of my, like, button topics. But I have found recently, especially, that I feel like a lot of young adult is young adult purely for marketing purposes.
Right.
And I think that's the case with this. Because young adult readers are gonna go out and they're gonna buy a bunch of books. Like, I feel like a lot of adult readers typically, they'll read a lot of backlist, and they'll like, they're not gonna like get the like the big new thing the way a young adult reader would typically, because that's just kind of the way the market works. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's why we see like with Bookstagram and BookTube, it's more I feel targeted towards young adult.
Yeah, and I feel like that, like, this book is classified that because of that market.
Right.
I don't know, it's interesting.
But yeah, anyways, world building, because most of the character stuff, it's actually driven because of how the world is set up, which I loved the world, because she created, I mean, she included a map, which is amazing, which a lot of fantasy books do that, and so it's really helpful to see.
I never look at maps.
I look at it, and sometimes I reference. But she does, you don't even have to look at the map, because she does a good job of describing, and it's all based off of the main river, whether, you know, you're north or, you know, south of the river in Old Town or whatever.
Which I think is interesting, is just because, like, we live on the Mississippi River, and so, like, Memphis technically isn't divided by the Mississippi River, but we also have West Memphis over there, and like,
which isn't part of Tennessee or Memphis, it's just called it.
Yeah, and so like we kind of like acknowledge it as part of us. I don't know. Yeah. Like the whole like Mid-South area is like a thing that goes across like 3 or 4
It's 3 states.
3 states.
3
and
states.
So yeah, I felt like that was kind of similar to us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I mean, each has its unique character. And then, I don't know, I really loved the backstory in it with because there was a revolution. And because of that, they wiped out anyone that could basically create volts, which is what N can do, which we learn. But it's, is it mites? How do you
Misers.
say? Misers, that's what it is. Okay. So it's the Misers, which were like the royals and stuff. And you learn a lot of their history as N is learning that history. And then it all kind of comes together with her learning through the blood gazing that she is somehow connected to it. And then through more actions and more things in the story, it's when her eyes change. It's like 100% done. That's it. And so I really like that. But I also liked how it was set up in days, like by 10 days. And I know I mentioned it in mine because it gave you a clue what has to happen, because Levi, due to having to pay back to one of the casino families, because I was the last person in the Ponzi scheme. And so the stakes are built by each day, and so I did like how it was set up that way with when it came to just the physical book and stuff.
I'm trying to find a quote that I had because it kind of relates to like learning about the misers and all of that, but of course it's impossible to find quotes in this way that the Kindle has it set up. But essentially, it kind of talked about the misers and, like how now, like, the misers they're kind of like the bad people.
Yes.
Like, essentially. And it kind of just made me think about how history is written by the victors. Like, that whole, like, quote or, like, adage or whatever you want to call it. And it kind of made me think about how so much of like what we know is based off of like what the media tells us, and so it's always like a question of like, well, is the media reporting it in a non-biased way, and I feel like there isn't any non-bias in media. I feel like
anymore.
Because I feel like you like even if you don't mean to, you kind of insert your own bias into something. But yeah, it was like, I feel like that definitely played a part in this world, because technically like the misers are supposed to be these horrible, evil people, but I mean the world doesn't seem any better now.
No, and it reminded me very much of like the Romanovs getting completely wiped out.
I agree.
And then there's this lost princess type of feel, and that's what N is, and she doesn't know that's what she is, and she gets stuck, and maybe that's where she got some of the inspiration And because with Levi and stuff, you know, not, and someone that's in, you know, who's a part and does criminal activity and scams people and all that, is very similar to, at least, isn't the Fox version of, isn't that who did Anastasia? Who did the movie? Was it Fox?
It's not Disney. It was either Fox or Universal.
Yes, but anyways, it reminds
you're
me.
Right that it was not Disney. Do not call it a Disney movie because it's not.
No. But then you have, I mean, it's very, like, thinking about it, it is very, some of that is very the general Romanoff feel to it, with all of that and the darkness to it and everything.
For sure.
Can you find it?
No, of course, because I mean, it'll take forever for me to find it. But I did pull it up on Goodreads, so maybe I'll actually find this quote. But I definitely felt like it was interesting.
Yeah. That one. So, yeah. But I don't know. I really liked that whole historical aspect to this and how she tied it in, because sometimes that's not done extremely well with that backstory.
I was continuously trying to figure out, like, if like, was this ever our world, and if it was, like, when did we switch from, like, having, like, our, like, what we know of as, like, what society is now. The only kind of, like, little hint was that N's parents, their birth dates are recorded as 1884 and 1887. And so, like, when the revolution happened, they started over the calendar, and so they died in, like, year 9. And I thought that was really interesting, because I was just, like, thinking of, like, when would we have started over the calendar? Because, like, theoretically we could have. Nobody does. Like, if a nation gets conquered and...
Well, I would think it would probably be when we had the... Like the Revolution.
Yeah, the Revolutionary War. I don't know. I just think those things are, like, interesting.
Or if something happened different during the Civil War. Like, I could see that history being changed.
Yeah, for sure.
Because at that point, if it was the Civil War, then the, you know, the capital would have been in a different location. It wouldn't have still been in D.C. Or was it D.C. at the time? Or was it in Pennsylvania? Or, because it was in a different place than the White House.
It was Pennsylvania.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
I think the quotes I was thinking of were 2, because there were 2 different quotes, or there was quotes, like, at the beginning of each day.
That she did that.
Yeah. One of them was, in the city of sin, secrets are their own sort of currency, and reputation holds more power than fortune. And the second one, which this is my favorite, was legends of the North Side are born in the gutters and die on the gallows. And I thought that was just, like, that just conjured up, like, images of rebellion.
Right. And I mean, that we've seen since the beginning of history, because that's so true of the French Revolution. And then, I mean, think of Henry VIII, like, all the stuff he did.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's interesting.
And, like, people, like, revolutionaries, the people who change society are typically the ones that are executed or persecuted, whatever, in like the day that they're around. But later, it's only later on that we look back at them and then we're like, oh, we're right, they were right. Yeah. Anyway, the whole world building thing just conjured up all those images.
Right. And I mean, she does, and like we said, she does an amazing job. I mean, obviously, since we both gave her 5 stars, like, it's a really neat, I think, society that she created and history that she created, which is hard to do.
As far as, like, plot and pacing, it was perfect in my opinion. I mean, well, I take that back. It was perfect if you want to binge read something. It was not perfect if you want to, like, have a book that gets to, like, a kind of like a stopping point so you can, like, put it down and, you know, go to sleep.
Right.
I mean,
no, I will say, both of us, the first time we started it, we both ended up right around page 70. And then it took us a second, I think, to get back into it. But that's because it was all that beginning. Yeah. Like, we're trying to figure things out. But once you got to that point, I mean, it took off. Like, that's when we both, like, binged it completely. And I was just too tired to stay up and finish it because I had to get up for work type of deal. But Yeah, I think the plot, it was driven perfectly.
Oh yeah. I mean, I paid for my overnight later. Still kind of paying for it because that was when my little migraine started. So yeah, even as I was reading, I was like, if you don't go to sleep now, you're really gonna regret this tomorrow.
Well, then I was supposed to get like 2 days later the sequel, and then UPS never showed up at all that whole day, and so it was a carrier issue, and I was so mad. I was like, I need this, because I was planning on starting that book as soon as I got it. And yeah, so oh well. But now I get to, I guess, enjoy it a little bit longer.
Yeah, the second one is much longer. It's the hardback I got, it's 599 pages, and I don't know how much this one was, but it's longer.
Yeah, this one is like 408.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about 200 pages longer.
And like the paper is like very thin. It's like one of those books with like the thin paper, and I was, yeah, those aren't my favorite. I ended up buying the Kindle edition for the second one as well because our library doesn't have it.
Shocking, if you've ever heard us complain about that.
Are we surprised? No.
Never.
And then I even had somebody look on Scribd to see if it was there, and it wasn't there either, which is disappointing. But I kind of wasn't expecting it because I feel like, I don't know, I don't have Scribd, but my impression is that it's a lot of like backlist and not necessarily the newest stuff.
Right, but more adult stuff too. Maybe they have a lot
I feel like it would be YA. I feel like more people that read YA have Scribd. I don't know. I mean, I could be totally wrong. I
don't have it.
I don't have it either. And I got rid of Audible because I never used my credits.
Yeah,
so.
I love Audible.
Yeah, we've talked about
moving, yeah.
Me and audiobooks don't really mix most of the time.
I don't know. I mean, it was just one of my, and I'm not a fantasy person, but I've become that way. And so this, and then the whole Trader's Kiss, those were my two favorite.
I wonder,
this year.
One of the books I got her for her birthday is Four Dead Queens. I wonder what we'll think of that.
I know. Maybe.
I don't know, because I've heard, like, that was a book that I was, because I've been trying to be good and not buying a whole lot of books this year, so I wasn't even, like, I try to, like, anything that comes out, I'm like, just don't even look at it, because, like, you'll want it, and then you'll get it, and so then, of course, I'm shopping for your present, and I'm like, I mean, Becky would like this, and I would too. But yeah, I have seen it a lot, but I don't know if I've necessarily seen. I've seen better, like, more good things mentioned than bad, for sure. Yeah. But I don't know how much, like, people love it.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else? It's just...
I feel like, I mean, I could go on forever and read you guys every single quote, but, like, honestly, I read most of them in my vlog, so... Yeah, let me see if there's any other, like, philosophical things.
I don't know. I liked, and I know I talked about it, is the quote where she said she was an impossible player in a fixed game. The only person not playing to win. Because, I mean, truthfully, I think this is before she found out about her mom, but that's all she cared about. It wasn't, like, the money or the reputation, the fortune. It was truly about her finding anything out about her mom, where everyone else was after, you know, the next big thing, the next big score that they could get.
I loved the joke, like the ongoing joke about the mole. I just thought it was hilarious because it was like continuously mentioned. It was mentioned like 4 or 5 times. I think I highlighted every time. And I just thought it was so funny because it was like, we're going through this like horrible dark thing, and she's like, are you okay with taking the mole? Because I know gangsters don't take the mole. Yeah. I was like, I love this. But yeah, it also brought to mind like all of the public transportation things and the complete lack of it that we have.
Oh, I know. It's, yeah, and then it was funny to see if they would actually break down and use it, because they're like, you know, we're in desperate times, call from desperate measures. Yes, and no one would find us on, you know, their subway, the mole.
Yeah, nobody would think to look there because gangsters don't take the mole.
Exactly.
I also just really liked In and her coming into herself. And like, I think a lot of us can relate to the feeling of like having this pressure to be something, and it's not necessarily even something you really want to be, but you've had this like pressure on you for so long that like you try to be that, and like I feel like everybody reaches that point where like you can't be like what you're not supposed to be.
Right.
And there was a really sweet quote from Levi at one point, because he was like, you can be whoever you want. I don't even remember. It was really sweet.
Yeah.
It was a sweet moment.
See, I really like...
I found the quote. The quote about the world building that I was talking about. Sorry, I interrupted you. Anyway, it was at 54% of the way through the book, and there was just like a sentence, and it said, the Wigheads believed the only way to defeat a villain was to erase them. And now I'm rereading it, and it just comes to mind like the things that like we don't teach kids in school. Like there's I've been seeing articles at least a couple of times this year where they're kind of like taking out a lot of stuff about World War II and like not going into depth about it. But like if we don't talk about the horrors that happened, then like they'll be repeated.
Yeah, and that's actually when we do World War II, we actually say, because kids wonder, why do we need to learn this? It happened so long ago. We're like, no, this is so we don't forget it,
happened so long ago, and I'm like, no, it didn't. It was
no. I mean, but I mean, in their minds, they don't see it's that familiar. I mean, these are the group that grew up knowing. They didn't know what it was like with 9/11 or any of that, like, or what airports were like. And so every year we talk about that, like what it was actually like before that. I mean, they've grown up where the country was in war the whole time. But like we tell them with World War II, because we do most of our grades do a big Holocaust unit every year. And we kind of focus on different aspects of it. And we're like, the reason why we do this is so it never happens again, because genocide has happened, and it's actually has happened, and it's currently happening in our world today. It's currently happening.
I mean, and then like you also just think about like the civil rights movement, and like we have to talk about that. It sucks to talk about it, and it sucks to like have these things, these horrible things that people did, but we have to talk about it and acknowledge it and like keep trying to do better.
Yeah, because we tell them we have to learn it now so we make sure it doesn't happen in the future, which obviously is not working at the current moment, but it's, you know, I mean, it's better than it was. And yeah.
So anyway, that was like my philosophical moment in this book. I usually have at least one or two in almost every book I read. I'm the person that will like be reading a romance and I'm like, oh, but this conjures to mind images of, I don't know, Vietnam and whatever. Seriously.
One thing I did find interesting was how you became like the lord of, you know, the leader of a group.
Yeah.
And it was just like someone pledged, like when Lola pledged to end, like she didn't even realize like that her having, like Lola ended up reciting the oath, so she couldn't reveal her secret and stuff. And then it's revealed, well, now you're a lord kind of too. Like she is there's no way for her to go against you unless she actually challenges you.
And there was just a funny quote from Levi, because he's like, you've been in New Reigns for like 3 days and you're already the lord of the gang. And like, oh, I'm telling you guys, it was just full of funny like one-liners. I hope you guys loved them as much as I did. Another thing that just like broke my heart was when all of the Scar Hands oaths were broken, like just talking about the oaths. It just broke my heart.
I know, and it was like
no.
Yeah, because I mean they basically were like brothers together, Levi and Raymond.
And I will give her credit, because I feel like in a lot of fantasy, especially in the recent years, there have been so many times a character dies, but they're either not really dead or they're resurrected. And I get like why people want to do that, especially like, even as a writer, like I get it, because I don't want anything to happen to my little babies, but like that's when you get the emotional response. And it's like having your characters go through these hard things, and it also just like reinforces like the permanence of certain decisions and death and events and traumas and whatever.
Well, and it was done in a consequence because Levi didn't, you know, they didn't fulfill their end of the bargain at that point. And so it was just basically like a warning to show, well, this is the power that we have over this city and it was really sad. And then, but like, and then going into with the oath being broken, like their omertas that Bianca puts on both of them, which I found horrible, especially like how it happens and stuff, because it's choking and that, you know, control. And I see kind of where she went with that. You do by the end of it. And even though it's not a pleasant thing. And so then I'm wondering, okay, like how soon can we get this thing broken type of thing. I'm like, okay, like you two are both in a better position now, like now. And so I'm sure that's what happens, and like it'll eventually like play out.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. It hasn't so far, but I'm sure it will. But anyway, I found the other quotes, like just talking about like In kind of coming into herself. And at one point Levi tells her, sometimes we're not who we want to be because we're supposed to be something else. And so like once again, it just talks, like kind of made me think about like trying to be something you're not. Either you're not necessarily supposed to be, or like even if you want to be something, sometimes you just aren't that thing, and that's okay. And then another little bit later he says, you impress me every time I'm with you, and my heart was just like, oh yeah, it was so cute. But yeah, another thing I really liked about this book, and I actually, this is a random thing, I liked it a lot about Legacies, the TV show. It's the sequel to like the Vampire Diaries and the originals, essentially. How like fluid sexuality is in this book, and it's just like, it's such a non-thing. Like if a character likes somebody else of the same sex, it's just like not even a thing. And I was just like, oh my god, I just wish that that was how the real world was. Like, yeah, when you were talking about like if I was annotating and stuff, that was the big thing I picked up, was that, because it is so rare and it's something that we don't have in society. I wish we did. But yeah, Legacies, the TV show, is kind of like that too. It's just kind of like whatever, and I don't know, it kind of makes me like optimistic for the next generation, because I feel like Legacies is geared toward that generation, and then like young adults kind of moving in that way and all of that, and I was like, it's gonna be so great for them. I hope anyway. But yeah, that was just another thing I really liked. So, I mean, yeah, like we said at the beginning of this, 5 stars for both of us.
And I think, yeah, I'll end up rereading it next year when the last book comes out. Probably rereading the whole thing, and it'll probably still be 5 stars.
Yeah, probably.
So.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
I think that's it. I mean, it's just an amazing book. So and the author's really nice, and that just gives more, you know, more bonus points in the whole situation.
So yeah, for sure. I love how, like we've said this before, I love how accessible authors are now. But yeah, definitely head over, if you're watching this on YouTube, just comment down below. But if you are listening to this, head over to our Instagram, chat with us about this book. That's the only social media we remember to check. Which is funny, because in other parts of my life I never remember to check Instagram. But yeah, so for September we're gonna be reading one of the books I got Becky for her birthday, because then I went and bought it, and it is I Owe You One by Sophie Kinsella. So
and it seems exciting.
We're back to a contemporary.
We do try to mix it up between like a contemporary and some type of fantasy element, and then an adult book. And then probably October we'll have something spooky going with, because it's October. And I'll give Paige that one. So, because I'm not as big into those. But anyways, this one is, and I find the name interesting, Fixie Farr. Anyway, takes over the family business type of thing. And then she ends up, didn't you say, like running into a guy, like, and has to watch the computer or something? Yeah,
so I think they're at a coffee shop, and so she, like the guy like goes to the bathroom or something. He's like, hey, can you watch my computer? Apparently something happens like during this time where like she actually had to do something.
Yeah.
Which, as soon as I read that in the description, it just kind of made me laugh, because like, I've seen like this meme on Facebook, and it's like, when you ask me to watch your stuff, like, that's so much responsibility. Like if somebody comes, like I'm supposed to fight them off and like all this stuff. So like it just reminded me of that. So like I guess she is gonna fight somebody off or something, or prevent some kind of catastrophe to his computer.
Yeah.
And so he like gives her his card, and then somehow they decide to like she reaches out to him somehow.
Yeah, because it says he scribbles an IOU on a coffee sleeve and attaches his business card, and she laughs it off, saying like, because who would claim an IOU from a stranger? But then it looks like she does end up through certain circumstances claiming that IOU. So it should be a quick, easy, cutesy read. So I've always enjoyed her books.
I've only read one.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
And it's available on Book Outlet if you want it. So, and I'm sure
it's also at Target.
Yeah, this was about to say. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, yeah, that'll be our September read. Every time we do this, I'm like, wait, what month are we in?
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Definitely let us know by hitting the thumbs up button if you're on YouTube, or leaving a review if you are listening. And I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So we will see you next week with another episode.
Bye.
Bye.